Hi, I'm Amit Patel, co-chairman of the Taxation Committee of the BCAS Society. And I'm gathered here in the auditorium where Mr. Soli Dastur is about to give his speech on the Finance Bill 2016. We would like to bring to you certain people's views on how they perceive the budget to be. I have here with me Mr. VC Darak, a past chairman of the Western India Regional Council of the ICAI. Sir, we would like to know from you your views on the Finance Bill 2016. What do you think are the biggest positives from the budget?
Amit bhai, so far as budget is concerned, I think under the circumstances our finance minister have done the best which any finance minister could have done. So far as direct taxes are concerned, I can tell you that there are quite a few positives. For example, there is no increase in the tax rate itself, though looks like negative, but it is a positive. As promised by finance minister, he has started already reducing the corporate rates tax, which he had promised a couple of years back. Incentives and deductions, he has given a plan in the annexure to say that by 2020, almost it will go away and the rate will come down to 25%. Like this, there are quite a few, but I see the budget in a very positive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. VC Darak, ending with a very positive note about the budget 2016. I now have another friend of ours, Mayur Nayak, a past president of the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, who practices on international tax, FEMA, etc. And I would like to know, Mayur, your views on, especially on things like BEPS, transfer pricing related amendments that have been brought about in the Finance Bill 2016.
I think Amit, the main positive about this budget is the introduction of BEPS related reporting, country by country reporting, which is Action Plan 13 of the BEPS reporting. And India is one of the country amongst G20 nations who have taken very pragmatic and positive steps, proactive steps, I would say, which would lead to definitely better compliances multinationals. Another positive which I see, regarding now the certainty about the applicability of MAT on the FIIs, which was a uncertainty. In fact, a retrospective amendment which has been brought in, which is very positive sign. This year, all retrospective amendments are to the benefit of the SSE, unlike in the past where there used to be against the SSE. So that is another positive. In fact, for the first time, the government has tried to bring in accountability on the part of the income tax officers. So I see a lot of pragmatic and positive steps in this budget, according to me.
So you feel very positive about the budget?
Absolutely.
And you have no problems about the retrospective amendment brought in by the finance minister?
Yeah, as long as it is for the benefit of the SSE, definitely. And this is one positive aspect which I would say, positive trend which has started, which should continue, according to me.
Thanks, Mayur. Yeah. These were two senior chartered accountants. Let's look at what the young India wants. A budding chartered accountant. I have with me a CA student, Rishi, and I would like to know, there were a lot of aspects of the budget relating to Make in India, Startup India, etc., which are aimed at the youth of India. So let's see what young Rishi has to say about his views on the budget, particularly with reference to the Make in India, Startup India, etc. Rishi, what do you think about the budget?
Actually, the government was keen on bringing new entrepreneurs to start up their new business, which was which was seen in this budget, and also the Startup India Stand Up India policy, which government proposed. Few of the amendments of budget are very new and very innovative by finance minister, like the 3 years initiative. 3 years are being exempted from profits. Also, the exemption under section 54EE provided to every assessee to get their amount invested in funds to promote startup is also a good initiative. Similarly, 54GB exemption is amended, whereby a new entrepreneur can sell his residence. If he wants funds, he can sell his residence and invest in shares of his startup. That is also interesting point too.
Thank you. So as a part of the youth, as a part of Young India, you feel that we are going in the right direction and the finance minister has given the right spur to youngsters to set up their own companies?
Yes, definitely. As we have seen in past few years, there are innovative business coming in e-commerce side and by new youths, which is absolutely an benefit for youths.
Thank you. That was Rishi. very thankful to the finance minister for the various initiatives taken by him on the Startup India, Make in India concept. Thank you. I now have with me Sunil Gabawala, a person who is very well known in the indirect tax circle in Mumbai as well as in other parts of India. He is currently the honorary secretary of the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. Sunil, I see you are carrying some book with you. Can you tell our audience what this is about?
Hi Amit, this book is about the union budget. This is a publication which BCAS comes out regularly immediately post the budget, and it's always released on the budget lecture day, which is today. This has covered more than 2 decades, and it is a valuable piece of information for many chartered accountants. In fact, many chartered accountant firms buy this book in bulk, and we have more than 30,000 copies of this book in circulation. So it's a very commendable job which the society does for the professional forum.
Thanks, Sunil. Now, coming to the Finance Bill 2016, on the indirect tax front, there has been a lot of talk in the media about the new cess of 0.5% which has been levied. What are your thoughts about it, and how it would, whether it will negatively impact business?
So yes, of course, prior to the budget, there was a lot of apprehension that the service tax rate would go up. Luckily, nothing of that sort has happened. Instead, of course, we have this Krishi Kalyan cess which is introduced at the rate of 0.5%. It will definitely increase the cost of services to some extent, but it's unlikely to create a major impact because the cess is creditable. Unlike the Swachh Bharat cess which was introduced last year, which was made non-creditable, the Krishi Kalyan cess is made creditable. So it's not going to have such a big impact as it is expected to be. So in all, I don't think while it's a little bit of a dampener, it's not a big dampener in terms of the overall restraints available to the government.
Thanks. And what are the changes relating to the SENVAT credit rules? Is there anything major that will impact the businessmen of the country?
So this SENVAT credit rules is one area which has always kept on having problems for people, and the law was always complicated. This year the finance minister has done a very good job by trying to simplify the entire process of credit in cases where a person is providing both taxable as well as exempted services. So the new formula which has been prescribed under Rule 6.3 is actually a logical formula, and there have been cases in the past in the tribunals wherein conflicting stands have been taken by the tribunal, and some of those stands have been illogical. So it brings a logical conclusion to the entire process. Secondly, for banking companies also, they have been given an option to opt out of the standard formula of 50%. So quite a lot of banks will find this to be very beneficial and may see an increase in their bottom line because of that.
So you feel that these changes are positive and are in line with the government's promise of making life simpler for taxpayers?
Definitely, yes. Definitely, and I think I'll also highlight one more important change which has been brought in is the realization that the interest rate which is there under the service tax law is very high. So which was originally 30%, it has been straight away reduced to 15% in this budget, which by itself is a very important factor, because 30% interest in the today's life is really very harsh as compared to penalties. So I think that is one thing which the finance minister has shown his ability to hear. In fact, the 30% was also introduced by him, but in a way he has rolled it back. So I think it shows the open mind of the government to really consider the genuine hardships of the SSEs and try to implement the changes as required. So I think it's an overall a good budget in that sense.
Thank you, Sunil. So that was Sunil Gabawala, very optimistic about the budget as far as indirect tax proposals are concerned. Let's see what our next guest has to say about the budget. I'm happy to have here with me Jayant Gokhale, another very eminent chartered accountant, well known in the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, since he's a former Central Council member, and he practices a lot on charitable trust matters. So Jayant, tell us a little bit about what are the amendments in the finance bill relating to charitable trusts, whether they are good, whether they are positive, negative. What are your views?
Of course, this area of charitable trusts has been an area of very long litigation in the past, and in a sense it is good that they have made some changes. The attempt is an honest attempt to reduce litigation. Whether that end will be achieved or not is a question mark, but certainly it's a positive attempt to try and bring those who are not falling within the exemption into a clear option whereby they can actually convert themselves into commercial organizations, pay tax. The only desirable thing possibly would have been to give them some sort of a concession to incentivize, so that those who are engaged in long litigation could possibly be incentivized to convert into commercial bodies without going through the same rigmarole of taxation as they would have otherwise suffered. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayant. So that was some interesting insight into the budget provisions relating to charitable trusts. I now have the pleasure of inviting the President of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, Raman Jokhakar, who is going to be in a short while welcoming Mr. Soli Dastur at the budget meeting. Mr. President, what are your thoughts on the Finance Bill 2016?
I think the finance bill is very positive, and we are seeing a great deal of engagement by the government after a very long time. And it seems like there are so many changes that have been brought in. Without going into really the details, I feel that there is a very positive engagement from the government, that they are, wanting to do something that will make a difference. In particular, sort of beyond the finance bill, I feel that the process related changes, which are electronic scrutiny, for example, that is a very good thought process which is being moved, or taking up certain recommendations from the Tax Administrative Reforms Commission report, or even the ISWAR committee recommendations that have been absorbed. It seems like the government is listening to what people are saying, and doing something about the difficulties that people face, making some things clearer for them. Those are very positive developments around the budget, because it's not just the provisions, but how the provisions will eventually get implemented that will make all the difference.
Thank you, Raman. We are standing here, as I mentioned earlier, in this auditorium waiting for Mr. Dastur to arrive. Raman, this is a hallowed auditorium here. It has a huge capacity of more than 2,500. And we are still 15 to 20 minutes away from the actual meeting to start, and we see the hall almost full. How do you feel as a president of the organization when you see the audience filling up such a large hall so quickly and much in advance before the talk actually begins?
I think it's very heartening, and it's only in Mumbai that we get such type of audience, people who are really interested in finding out what the budget proposals are. There are investors to taxpayers to professionals who are very interested in knowing what will be the impact of all these provisions. And as a president, I feel really it's a very heartening thing to see that the whole auditorium is getting filled up. And we are also having a webcast. This year we had made smaller videos which have received excellent responses. And I think we can look forward to a wonderful exposition by Mr. Dastur. And this will be BCAS's 51st lecture meeting on the budget proposal, and the 28th, 2/8, by Mr. Dastur. So that's a big achievement.
Thank you, Raman. That was the president of the BCAS Society, Raman Jokhakar. And now it's my privilege to be sitting with an illustrious past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, as well as the past president of the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, Mr. Arvind Dalal. Arvind bhai, what are your views on the budget 2016 from a macro perspective, from a national perspective? Is it good enough to spur the economy, which is badly needed at this hour?
I would like to comment on two features of the budget which takes away a substantial part of its value according to me. The first thing is the voluntary disclosure scheme. Government after government and ministry after ministry had assured that we will never bring any voluntary disclosure scheme. This has been brought in by BJP, and if it continues, that means there will be no incentive for the people to be honest, because they can always have black money which can be made into by such voluntary disclosure scheme. So this is one of the most backward feature of the budget. And the second thing is there is no incentive, or rather real booster to industrial sector of the economy. They have given booster to the agricultural and the farmers, but they have overlooked the fact that unless the industry is also very prosperous, it will not boost the economy as a whole. And therefore, the fact that this booster to the economy, to the industry has not been given is, in my opinion, likely to be retrograde to that extent, and it may take away from the consequence or good results of the budget.
Thank you, Arvind Bhai. So that was Mr. Arvind Dalal, who is of the view that the black money related provisions in the budget are not the right thing to have been done. And also, the finance minister doesn't seem to have done enough for spurring industrial growth while focusing on the rural and the farmer sections of the society. I now have with me Nitin Shingala, another past president of the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society and the current chairman of the Human Development and Technology Initiatives Committee. Nitin, I would like to know what are your views on the raging controversy surrounding the amendments which have been proposed for the taxation of the withdrawal from the EPF. There is a lot of noise in the media. What do you think about it?
Thank you, Amit. I think the government came up with a laudable objective of moving towards a pension society. To that extent, that objective cannot be faulted. We see in the younger generation specifically, they take to the debt quite quickly, and therefore the level of savings needs to be encouraged and maybe enforced to that extent. However, the way they have gone about, maybe there could have been a better approach by coming out with a concept paper for public discussion, seeking public comments, and thereafter enacting any change in the law. One thing I can say is the changes proposed are prospective. B, they have also been sensitive to the public reaction. So they are trying to correct whatever shortcomings there are, and I'm sure good senses will prevail and more acceptable solution can be worked out. Certainly, there were apprehensions that past savings would be impacted. Those fears are unfounded very clearly, even in the current proposals. And with respect to the cap of 150,000 per year or taxing the future withdrawals, they have come out with some clarification that the tax will be limited to the interest. We'll have to see how they go about with the changes. Yes, the approach could have been better, even though objective was, well deserving.
Thank you. So the approach could have been better, but you feel that the reactions in the media from various quarters is based on a half reading or an incomplete reading of the actual provisions.
Certainly, I mean, immediate reaction is that everybody wants to know whether they are personally being impacted, and that's where the concerns, emerge. And therefore, the government could have taken a better approach of, coming out with a consultative paper rather than, throwing a kind of a surprise that it was.
Okay. Now on another completely different front about the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, since you are the chairman of the Technology Initiatives Committee, can you share with our viewers a little bit about what is happening at the society on the technology front? How are we harnessing it for the benefit of our members and for the students, etc.?
Yes, Amit, thanks for asking that question. We are trying to connect and spread our reach farther through technology. Today's lecture meeting, for example, will be webcast live, and since last year we have started using a different method of making the webcast more interesting, more engaging by providing graphic along with the live stream. We have this year, taken this initiative, and all the tax and other committees have cooperated in getting the views of not only the seniors but also youngsters on pre-budget, post-budget. We want to bring those to the members and public at large. So those are again in public domain. Most of our lecture meetings, we have the recordings available on YouTube now at the fingertip, and so through those various initiatives we are trying to expand our reach. Also, there are initiatives being taken to improve the society's internal management as well. So the various technology initiatives are working on several directions.
Thank you, Nitin.